Welcome, Matt Cartwright, to the Dish with Dina podcast. It is such a pleasure to have you on with me today.
Likewise, it's so nice to see your beautiful smile.
I'm so glad that this is not only in audio, but on YouTube as well. So people can see us with our beautiful
Yeah.
smiles. And I was just saying we're very color coordinated together today too, which I absolutely love because you are one of the kind strangers on the internet that we found each other there. And as you and I were talking earlier too, sometimes things are not by coincidence. Like there was a reason for this conversation to take place. So I'm so thrilled that we're going to have a chance to learn a little bit more about you. So, Matt, will you share with us first how you got to the place you are now? What brought you into this field and your profession?
I am a psychotherapist, so I've been in practice since 2010, right? Oh my gosh, sometimes when I say that, it's like, well, here's the deal. People always ask me, Matt, well, how long have you been a psychotherapist? And I say, since I was about six, because my mother was my first client. And when I was growing up, I was very good friends with a lot of the girls, and they often confided in me, and I've always felt this desire to help people. So in when I got my bachelor's degree at the University of San Francisco in 19, no, back in the 90s. Um, I went to get my degree in psychology because at the time I was coming out and I just wanted to understand how to better use my mind and make sure I say this, make sure that I wasn't crazy, like because that's what I had been told growing up, that a part of me being gay, who I am, is wrong, it's bad, it's defective. So I really just wanted to be happy and have a clear sense of purpose. And then life got interesting and curious, and we can talk about all the detours. And then in 2008, I said, I graduated in 1993. I can tell the people it's fine. I graduated in 1993 with my bachelor's in psychology. And then 15 years later, I went back to get my master's in social work. And there was a whole lovely experience that is being written about in my book right now about those years because I've always been drawn to helping people. I've been drawn to things of the mystical and the spiritual and understanding how the mind works. Because I really do believe if we do not understand how our mind works, then our mind will work against us. And everything that I have created and achieved in my life has been because I've shifted my perception and my thinking and been able to show up in a new way in my life that's allowed me to have new experiences. And I see so much suffering, and it's really heartbreaking because when I see the suffering, I know it's coming from a programming, a patterning, a paradigm attachment that can be shifted. And people, we've really been taught not to believe in our power, and each one of us has so much power to change and transform and heal. We just haven't been shown how. So that's why my mission and my purpose is to help others heal and transform and have fun in the process. Because if it's not joyful, what's the point?
I absolutely agree with you on that point too. We take a lot of things very seriously, and we should on some level, but things have to be rewarding on a variety of different factors. We also I think not everything has to be so difficult. So, there might be some undoing of habits and learning and establishing different ways, etc. That might take some time. And one of the things that comes up in a lot of these episodes, regardless of what the profession, the career, or the position is of the person whom I'm interviewing, is we have some of the same themes that come up. We talk a lot about the mind body connection, which you
Mhm.
and I were just talking about before we hit record. We also talk about immediate gratification versus
Oh, yeah.
patience, compassion. This also, I think, plays a role with what you were saying too, with the suffering part of it too. Why are we so willing to stay in a particular position that is not necessarily serving us and not breaking out of that? And is there a reason we're disconnected from something? Is there a belief that things are going to take too much time, so why bother? I'm not worth it, or I don't want to change and I'm not willing to dig deep enough in that. So as always, I have, my million questions already to ask you, but I first want to start with, let's just get an idea, because you said you came
Okay.
from the West Coast and you're now in New York City like I am. What
Actually, I
brought
came from Texas.
from Texas?
Yeah, I grew up
You
in Texas.
studied.
I grew
Okay.
up in Texas as a young gay boy,
Mhm.
knowing that I was different, using humor to deflect from the loneliness inside.
Yeah.
Um, and the fear of bullying was a large part of my experience growing as a boy who was gay. And when I was, and then after coming out in 1988, I was like, I got to get out of Texas because if I'm going to embrace a new way of living, I can't stay in the same place. If I want to grow, I need to grow beyond what I know. And so I had a choice. I was like, oh, I can move to New York or San Francisco. And I was like, New York, ooh, that's scary. This is a lot of murders in New York. Better not go there. And my friend lived in San Francisco, and she went to Mills College, and I went and visited her. And actually, at the time I decided to move, it was because I caught my boyfriend cheating on me on Valentine's Day. And I was like, why am I staying in Texas for this? What? But I knew I had to stay in school. So I found the University of San Francisco, I could still apply. And so I applied like late March. And then I moved to San Francisco in the summer of in August of 1990. And I lived there from 90 to 96, where I embraced a whole new world of identity and stepping into a new identity, not just as a gay man, but also at the time, I stepped into my drag persona, and I stepped into the nightlife scene because it's the 20s and I created a whole personality. But in that world, we're talking about community earlier. When you're around people with a certain consciousness, you adapt their limitations and their behaviors. So when you hang around people who are using drugs, drug dealers, all kinds of characters, you become the average of their peers. And that's what happened to me. And I was like, I either have to leave San Francisco, even though I had had some success as a drag performer. I had my own nightclub. I walked the runway for Macy's. I danced with Grace Jones. I was on Nash Bridges with RuPaul. I did all these things. I had a commercial, but I was like, I have to get out of here because the drugs are consuming me because I didn't have the skills and the foundation of a strong sense of self to be able to say no to peer pressure. And so then I moved to New York in 96, and things got really good. I actually even performed with Madonna in 1990 on the MTV Music Video Awards, and I thought things were going great until my drug dealer friend from San Francisco moved to New York. And as I tell people, you can make changes in your life on the outside, but if you don't make changes in your life on the inside, those old paradigms and old patterns, they don't just go away, they just remain dormant. And that's what happened to me. And so the drug addiction picked up until I got sober in 2003, actually 2004. In 2004, I got sober. So I've been sober for 20 years now. And that's what led me to after 4 years of my sober job, where I painted apartments and cleaned apartments. And I was on public assistance. It was a wild time. And I was like, I have to do more. And it's interesting. I went to this called Hot and Dry in Palm Springs when I was sober. I broke my pinky at the gym working out. I was like, okay, it was a freak accident. Freak accident. There are no freak accidents. 10 months later, went snowboarding with my boyfriend at the time, and I slid on the ice and I fractured my wrist. So within 10 months, I broke my pinky and I fractured my wrist. And at the time, I was attending a spiritual place called Sacred Center, and I was doing a lot of spiritual work. And I was told, like, well, write a letter to your hand and be like, what's going on? There are no coincidences. Everything is a message. What is the message? And as I said, I was painting apartments, I was cleaning apartments, and I wrote to my hand. I'm like, okay, I've got two breaks in the last less than a year. Clearly, you're trying to send me a message. What is the message? And very clearly, with my non-dominant hand, I wrote, "It, you are not to be doing what you're doing with your hands. Your life is meant for a bigger purpose." I went and I applied to Fordham to get my master's in social work because I already have my degree. And I also did a 2-year personal development program at Intervision's Institute for Spiritual Development, which I graduated with in 2010, along with my master's of social work, and actually became ordained as an interfaith minister at Intervisions. And currently, I'm a teacher there of the basics of personal development, and healthy mind, healthy body are the two courses that I teach at Intervisions. That's how I got here.
The long, arduous, and insightful journey that took you, and can I just say for a second here, the fact that you started off with saying, "I don't wanna go to New York because there's murder there," and yet it sounds like you led somewhat of a life that could have put you in harm's way had you
Oh,
not
yeah.
seen out of it. So I'm so grateful that you did find your way into an environment that led you on a path where you are no longer, in harm's way there.
I actually did meet this guy once, and he was kind of scary. And he was like, I was trying to make small talk with him, and he's like, I'm like, oh, nice tattoos. Where did you get them? He's like, prison. And I was like, oh, nice. What were you in for? He says, murder. Well, manslaughter. And I was like, oh, well, at least you had a good lawyer. What would you like to do today? So
Right, no
yeah,
judgment, everybody's got a
judgment.
history.
Like, I'm here.
Everybody's got a
So
history. Oh my gosh. I really do think it speaks to, again, another theme that seems to come up a lot in some of these discussions, the fearlessness, right? You took a chance, you recognize limitations, you wanted to venture out and be the true you, and you were able to, thank goodness, get out of Texas, which was holding you back and limiting you, and move into not just one, but two areas that I would assume are way more comfortable for you to be in and allowed you to
yes.
spread your wings and fly and develop the true sense of who you are. So I applaud you for that. And I really do hope that anybody who's listening to this too, again, when we talk about this word fearlessness, this could be construed as a variety of different ways. Sometimes people will say, well, I can't because I can't afford to move out, or I can't leave my family, or
I,
I don't have enough skills to do something. But even if it's just a small step in the direction that might lead you into or out of some situation that is no longer serving you, into something that is going to be more in line where you see yourself going, then please, please do yourself a service and allow yourself to follow that path. And even if it doesn't work out, at least you don't have any regrets that you took a chance to do something and you were able to move forward. So Matt, share with us too, because again, I'm going to probably go into some more specific questions about approaches and the overview of what we were talking about with mind body connections and so on. But who is the current patient population or clientele that you're working with that you see on a regular basis in your practice?
so I predominantly work with gay men, straight women, couples. Um, what I see a lot of is addiction, identity issues. I work a lot with self-worth, self-confidence issues. And I really support people in understanding how powerful they truly are, because our limitations are an illusion. As you were talking just a minute ago, there are no wrong decisions because everything is a choice. And I get to take ownership for the choices I made when I didn't know better. Because if I knew better, I would do better, but I didn't know better. And sometimes I think that we often, when I work with people, they're like, well, why do we have to go back to childhood? That's where it started. That's where you started to become impressed with your belief systems, with your consciousness, when you didn't have the ability to discern and choose or reject the thoughts that were coming your way. When we're 0 to 7 years, we just say yes. If somebody says to me, Matt, you're not, there's something wrong with you for being gay. I said, yes. You're a bad boy. You're not good enough. You're not this enough. I said, yes. And it wasn't until I started to get older and it was like, wait, 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 this doesn't make sense. When I came out, I had to challenge everything that I had been taught about who I am and about religion and about the way the world works if I wanted to be free, because what I realized it was just taught to me. Just because it was taught to me doesn't mean it was true. And if we have a child and the parent teaches the child and says, Johnny, 2 plus 2 is 8. Johnny's going to go to school and the math teacher's going to say, okay, Johnny, 2 plus 2 is 4. Why did you put 8? No, it's not. It's 8. And they will fight you for those limiting beliefs, even if they're wrong, because they've attached it to their caretakers or the people that have trained or taught them what to believe. And if we're going to do that with 2 plus 2 is 8, think what we do with who you are and your worth and your value. It's like women. I study Brene Brown. I've trained with Brene Brown. And when she talks about shame, women have more shame categories than men. It's like women are taught you have to be perfect and wear a size 2 and don't be a bitch and hold the cookies and the phone and be a business and all of this, be a perfect wife, mother. No wonder women are under such stress and duress. And now you're right, you're not a full person. You can't make decisions for your body. Hello, hello. And men, the sad thing is, it's like anything that makes us look weak is a shame activator. So men will fight this toughness and it's just a projection of something we've been taught. So I really work with people to understand not just what you've been taught, but what is it that you want to believe about who you are? That it all starts with your beingness. I just recorded my TED Talk, which is going to come out any day now. I'm so excited. Called the title is We Are All in Drag, Our Collective Identity Crisis, because as a former drag queen and current psychotherapist, one thing that I've realized in my practice is that right now everyone is in drag. We're dressing and adorn ourselves based on how we want to be accepted and what helps us to belong. We're so focused on fitting in that we don't belong. And I really work with people to help them to be at home within themselves, to belong to themselves. Because when you stand, and this is one of the things that I've learned, like being in drag, my drag name was Madeline, came at a cost. I got lost in an illusion without a clear vision, lacking a strong sense of self, rooted in values and principles to guide me. Was dangerous, because the nightlife became my life. I got so disconnected from belonging to myself because I was trying so hard to fit in. And when you fit in, you have to squeeze yourself, make yourself smaller in certain areas. I said this to someone earlier today. Like, if you're a round peg trying to fit into a square hole, in order to fit, you have to squeeze in the excess and expand what's lacking to try to fit that space instead of being your authentic self. And we don't value people's diversity and uniqueness and talents that each of us holds as a unique representation, I say, of spirit, of the creative force of life. We're so focused on like trying to limit ourselves. That's what's causing suffering. To try to make yourself smaller and limit yourself and fit in, it's uncomfortable. So when I work with my clients and work with anyone, the first question I always want to know is, what do you want? We're so committed to what we don't want.
For
Well, I don't want
sure.
to be like that. I don't want to be this way. I don't want to be that. And it's like we're not encouraged to say this is what I want, because you might get hurt or you might fail or you just might get it.
Exactly. I was just gonna say that too. First thing I tend to do also whenever we have conversations like this, of course, I always put a disclaimer in the recording itself. But for anyone listening to this, we're sharing experiences, education to try to empower you. We also seem to be advocates for a variety of people as well. A lot of things that I was scribbling down when you were speaking just now, Matt, comes with especially as you and I too. I mean, I'm an 80s Gen Xer. I've seen life before cell phones and the
I
internet, and
know,
now,
right? That's why
especially,
we can have fun in the club.
exact.
Nobody knows where it's at.
And especially now with social media, the ideals, like everybody has an opinion about everything. Like you said, not only are people trying to fit into a category that they themselves believe they might not be judged in, but now we're also up against what the grander scheme of the social media or the internet world is deeming appropriate, or
Mhm.
however we're going to categorize that. So, while I recognize every single person is different, we all have a variety of different things, but there are certain things, I think, certain threads of beliefs that we can kind of share in common. So, what do you believe is most important for people to recognize with being able to chip away things in order to empower themselves, in order to give themselves a voice? So, maybe we're speaking specifically to people who have been more shut down and not giving an opportunity to allow themselves to flourish and be their true selves.
Well, here's what I have, a little process I use. It's called the VIP process. Because if you want to be a VIP in your life, you need to have a VIP, a vision, an identity, and a practice. Everything in your life came from those three things. And I say your vision needs a vibration, because if it's not exciting, you're not going to be enticed. Your identity needs an inspiration, meaning your inspiration, the word inspiration comes from in spirit, coming from a higher place. It also coming from resonating with what you see in others, what inspires you, what gets you excited. And your practice needs principles or values, meaning those, like you talked about fearless, I like to use the word courage, joy, responsibility, honesty, confidence, compassion, integrity, curiosity. If you are clear, and I think this is one of the things that I struggled with in my life, is I would get a vision and be like, "Oh, I want to be big and famous," but it had no vibration. It was more because I wanted to get away from something instead of I wanted to give something. Our vision, my vision, is one where I make the largest impact. And so therefore that gets me excited. It has a higher vibration than my vision is to end my suffering or to avoid suffering. My identity, which are your I am statements, it's the way you see yourself. Your identity, our identity, is the key to creating our reality. And I don't think we give it enough importance, because everyone is not realizing that the adolescent stage from 12 to 25 is identity versus identity confusion. That's your development stage. And when I was in high school, nobody talked to us about our identity and who do we desire to be, what are the values we hold, like where do we see ourselves. It was just like, okay, take your SAT, pass your test, like do, and that who you are is what you do, and who you are is what you have, and who you are is the boxes that you check. What we get to learn is that your I am statements, and this is what I say about I actively manifest whatever I put behind that. So if I say I am tired, I am not good enough, I am actively manifesting and giving that energy to it, versus I am strong, I am powerful. And here's the thing, you don't have to believe it. It only has to be 51% believable. So you could, if it's too strong to say I am confident and I am powerful, you could say I am becoming stronger. I am becoming more powerful. You put ing in there and it gives it that focus. And then you have to practice, because You have to practice your values. I have to practice confidence. I have to practice joy. I have to practice watching my mouth because sometimes I'm sassy and I get triggered and activated. And I get to practice learning from that. And that's why my website, A Matter of Practice, is my tagline for Instagram and TikTok because I say everything is a matter of practice. And even when I was dating my partner of now of 11 years, when we first met, I said, I'm just practicing. I never been in this kind of relationship. And even to this day, we've been together for 11 years. I say, I'm still practicing because I've never been in an 11-year relationship with this person at this time in this space. So when I say I'm just practicing connection, I'm practicing delighting, I'm practicing humility, I'm practicing forgiveness, it gives me a place to focus and it takes the pressure off of having to do it perfectly. So that's my little VIP process that I believe is a great way to organize our thinking because so much people need a process to follow because we that's how we learn and you learn by repeating it and when you repeat it it gets into your subconscious and then you vibrate and you activate that energy and then that's when you see it out in the world. So most of our suffering is because we're wanting things to be different than what they are instead of realizing that we can create
Mhm.
whatever we want in the present moment by starting on the inside. Because what you see outside is a reflection of what's inside.
Right. Even though we've never met before, this validates a lot of the things that I've shared in my own personal practice for myself, for my own growth and progression, and also things that I'm sharing with both my students and my own patients and clients as they're trying to overcome or they're trying to pursue future goals or short-term things that you're trying to achieve. And the words that I used or that I was writing down as you were speaking, the thoughts become things, or the thoughts maybe aren't the things. Like, why do we believe the negative things to be factual and we don't believe the positive things that we say or that we're trying to say, like you said, in the manifestation, right? The rolling of the eyes. Yeah, right. I love how you frame that, where if it doesn't feel like it might be truthful, if it's a current statement, then speak it almost as if it's going to happen, at least guide yourself in that direction, because there is a very big connection in that energy level. So if you're constantly woe is me and clenching your fists and hate everything and I'm so sad and all that stuff, you're really just going to keep spiraling down. And I know from myself as well that that is the path that took me down not so a great place many, many
Hmm.
years ago.
Yes.
I also love the term practice, right? Put it into practice, but practice almost makes not necessarily perfect, but progression towards that. So that word is something that I'm also now considering to be kind of multifaceted in its own definition too. So I hope that also strikes a chord with a lot of people that are listening to this or watching this. And the last thing I wrote down is fluidity. You do not necessarily have to say, okay, I'm done, or like, this is when I know I'm done, but
You're
you're
never
allowed,
done.
right? You're exactly, you're allowed to be flexible and you're allowed to learn and grow. And like, how boring it would be just to be like, okay, that's it. That's it. We're done.
We're never done. We're creative beings. The world is always creating and changing and evolving. We're not the same people we were when we started talking 30 minutes ago. We're constantly creating, and I don't know what you're going to say. You don't know what I'm going to say. So we're in the moment. We're living, and that's what makes it fun when you can also remember that life is about what's happening in the present moment. And so much of what our fears are about is what might happen in the future, fears about what people might think about what we're doing in the present moment, or worries about what it means that it has already happened. And you bring up a great point that our brain, and I don't think people realize our brain, we're animals, y'all, we animals, everybody's animals. And what I mean by that is we're hardwired for safety and survival. And your brain is wired to look at what's missing. We're never going to get rid of negative thoughts. You're never going to do it. So stop trying to it because within everything is the law of polarity, the negative and the positive. So within everything that is wanted, the unwanted exists. Our job is to focus directly on what we want. I work with people all the time. People tell me all the time what they don't want. And I say, stop. When you hear yourself saying what you don't want, stop and say, actually, what is it that I really want? Because that's how you begin to train your brain to focus on seeing what's good in every experience as opposed to seeing what's bad about it. Because as easily as you can see what's negative, you can see what's positive. As easily as you beat yourself up, you can lift yourself up. It takes the same amount of energy. So you might as well do it and use it in a way that supports you because our brain is hardwired for meaning and for association. So that's why I say it's really important to understand how your mind works so that you can work with your mind to create exactly what it is that you want. And that's how you create ease and prevent dis-ease. That people don't realize that when you're in fear, your nervous system activates and elicits cortisol, and that cortisol creates inflammation. So when you have inflammation, you're in a state of dis-ease and disintegration. You're either in creation or disintegration. So I'm like, what are we creating today? Because I've done enough disintegration in my lifetime because I wasn't conscious and present. So I get to pivot. I get to pivot and say, what am I actually choosing? And just because a thought comes in my head doesn't mean I have to agree with it or choose it. I can say, I reject that. And here's what I choose instead.
Yeah. I think
So,
this really speaks to in my profession. I mean, I'm not necessarily in the true clinical world where I'm not in a hospital, but I do a lot of outpatient work and I do work with interdisciplinary teams as well. One of the things I try to share with my patients and my clients too is just exactly what you were talking about there, in the sense that it's not as simple as me handing you a list of foods that you should or should not eat, or tell you to go for a 30-minute run, right? The discussion about what you were saying with your hand and your finger, and also what you're talking about too, about this whole vibration on a fear level where it could be manifesting. If you're stressing out, we have research to show, but we also have anecdotal things to show too, that that can cause cancer cells, or that can cause high blood pressure.
absolutely.
So as an industry or as a profession, it really does a disservice for us not to address that with the patient population with whom we're working, to find out what exactly is it. It's not about eating more broccoli and less whatever. It's about really getting at the true figurative and literal heart of things. Will you share a little bit more about the insight into that, Matt, of the discussion around parts of your body that possibly could be reflective of? Because I know you showed me a book earlier
Oh
that
yeah,
you
you want my
referred to.
book? I love
Yeah.
my book. The body is telling you to love yourself. Lisa Bourbeau. I mean, some people use Louise Hay, but the body is an instrument of the mind. So if your body sends you messages, pain, my acronym for pain, pay attention inward now. If you're experiencing some pain, it's your body letting you know, hey, you need to pay attention. It's like I did with my wrist. Oh, there's some pain. Yes, it's a broken fracture. My body is saying, pay attention because something's out of alignment in my thinking. And I really, our attitude towards things is the consciousness, the combination of our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. So sometimes we get so focused on, okay, I want to work on my mental health. Okay, I want to work on my emotions. Okay, I'm going to go to the gym. Okay, I'm going to go pray and be spiritual. And, but we don't realize how all of them are connected. Shakti Gawain has a great book, The Four Levels of Healing. We have the mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual level. And if you work on one, you can work on the other because there is no separation. And I think people think, oh, there's something wrong with my body. And they don't recognize, okay, so if something's going on with my body, oh, it's my knee, I'm old and that's just what happens with the knees. I'm like, well, perhaps, but what is the mental messages in your mind that you're believing about your knee and your body and aging? And how can you work with it to pay attention? Because your body's not going to send you a text message. It's not sending you an email. It's going to send you some tightness. It's going to send you some cricketiness. It's going to send you a sharp pain. And it's going to say, hey, I need some water. I need some exercise. I need some stillness. I need some mindfulness. I need you to slow down, you know. And how many times have you ever heard somebody say, "Oh, I need a break. I need a break. Oh, Bob, I need to take a break." And then you hear Bob broke his leg the other day. Yeah, because Bob kept saying, "I need a break." And then his body said, "Okay, you need a break. We break your leg and you can sit down for 6 weeks. How about that?" We don't really realize the connection to our thinking and how it creates everything in our lives and how the thinking affects the vibration because everything is energy. So my thoughts are energy, and that energy becomes my emotion, my energy in motion, or my vibration, which affects and goes down into my body. And that's when you get your sensation, and that's why I say being is about the energy that you're bringing, because how you're being affects what you're doing, and what you're doing affects what you're having. So it all starts with being, which is the working title of my book. It all starts with being, because I was being gay, I was being a drag queen, I was being a drug addict, I was being a couple of other things that I'll leave for the book. But then I also had to learn to be sober and to be spiritual. But that again was focused on the external. But when I really wanted to be at home, being at home with myself meant being in alignment with my core self and my values, what I was bringing to the world. So, am I bringing joy today? Am I bringing love in the face of people's bad behavior? Am I bringing kindness? Am I bringing honesty? Am I bringing confidence? When I focus on who I'm being is what I'm bringing, then everything begins to shift. Because as I tell people, when I show up differently, you show up differently. If I showed up with a nasty attitude, Dina, then you probably be not treating me as nicely. But we're showing up with more of a connection. So we're expanding togetherness. And that's the connection that I really hope the listeners will understand, is that you have everything that you need already within you. All the love, all the joy, it exists within you right now. Your job is to bring it forth out into the world for others to share and to mirror back to you. And that's really how we begin to create health and wellness, because we already have it. We can heal the planet.
Mhm.
We can, by starting with healing ourselves. The reason why there's divisiveness out there is because there's divisiveness in here. So the more I can stand as a demonstration of unity within myself, in my thoughts, my feelings, and my behavior, AKA authentic integrity, the more I can be authentic, the more that's what I'll see around me.
Right.
So I'm not helpless. And for so long, I think we thought, oh, I'm helpless. I can't change the world. Yes, you can. I can shift my vibration. And when I show up with joy and light, I'll lighten up the rest of the world. And if enough of us do this, if enough of us believe in our power and our potential, because we're energy, we can we can transform the world.
Mm. Oh my gosh.
One TikTok at a time. No, I'm
Oh,
just
however we get the message out there.
one
Oh my
TikTok
goodness.
at a time.
If only we can all hear this message. And it doesn't have to be difficult, right? I think a lot of
It
times we
gets to be
think,
easy, I
yeah,
say. It
right,
gets to
exactly.
be easy.
Exactly. The more we do it, like you said, practice. Is there anything that's considered a hot topic or things that maybe feel like they are coming to you in your client sessions or otherwise that you either feel you want to clarify to our audience or maybe dispel? If there's anything that you feel like every time somebody shows up, I have to talk about the same particular topic over and over again.
Mm.
And I
That's
don't mind uncomfortable but necessary conversations, just as
Well,
a
the
side note.
politics right now creates a lot of stress and anxiety because it's everywhere you look, and people are in fear of believing that something outside of themselves can really, and yes, for women, this has been, something outside of yourselves affecting your actual everyday life, which is what the government can do. And you still have choice and power in how you respond to what's happening, right? We're not helpless. Like I can vote, I can donate, I can door knock, I can choose the candidate that is in alignment, I can participate. And I think that's one of the things that so many times we feel helpless and then we don't participate because we think, oh, well, it's not going to matter when actually that energy matters. So that also leads to the next thing, which is loneliness. People are really I think COVID really, as much as this is exciting. I would love to be sitting with you in person, Dina, and feel your energy, but I can feel it through here. We've kind of got a little bit too technological and virtual, and there's an energy that happens when a group of people come together. So technology is great, but it can also feel isolating, and um, and social media can increase a sense of loneliness because people see like, look at what all the pictures of the curated images, and I'm not like that, or compare and despair. And I think I work a lot with that issue with clients because people are seeing what's possible and seeing what they're lacking. And they're not seeing that as, oh, if that's something I'm drawn to, how can I create more connections in my life? Oh, that person went on that trip there. I didn't even know that was possible. Is that someplace I would like to go? Being more curious about how to use social media for information because now people can connect to felt. I mean, I didn't have social media. Like it could be used for bullying or building. And if we use anything for building, then we get to maximize its potential. So in those are the things that I'm seeing, and I work with I really believe that language is so important in everything that we do because language has a vibration. So I really work with my clients to be very intentional about the vocabulary and the language that we use. As I say, if it's not intentional, it's habitual. And so often we're operating our habitual thoughts and our habitual opinions, and we end up getting the same experience as opposed to being very intentional. This is what I'm creating. This is what I'm going for. And um, I know that if I put my attention on it and I continue to use my imagination and visualization, that I can begin to see myself in the experience, and that's how my frequency will start to attract it to me. And it's a practice. It's a practice. It's a practice. And it takes a lot of attention. And when your attention is being, everybody's vying for your attention, it's really important to be mindful of what you're focusing on because it does require repetition. And like we talked about earlier, people think, oh, well, I did that for a week and, my life hasn't changed. And I'm like, boo, I've been doing this for 30 years and I still got stuff I'm working on. It's not about having a magical transformation, although sometimes that happens. It's about being in a magical connection to your heart and to yourself so that you wake up loving yourself and regardless of what the external experience is. And if you really do have that powerful connection to yourself, other people will sense it and feel it. It's the law. Nobody taught us in school what are the laws. They taught us gravity.
Right.
Yeah. If I drop the glass, it breaks, but nobody tells me how to manifest or create the life that I want. We just
Right.
go with you should do this and you should do that and you should do this. But nobody says, is that what you want to do? Is that really what you want in your heart? Because I say this isn't hard work, it's heart
Mhm.
work.
Mhm.
So when you're working with your heart, then you're good.
Yeah. And I think my takeaways from a lot of this conversation, especially in the positions that we are in, we can potentially influence people or help people influence themselves or their futures. What I love is that just because we are trained professionals doesn't mean that we could be good at what we're doing. I know a lot of people in certain positions, just because they have a degree or a qualified credential in some way, they still suck at the personalness or the personability or the insight. Maybe for whatever reason, they just went through 23,000 years of school and never had life experience, or maybe led a life that was a little bit less traumatic or something that they don't necessarily want to do the work in on themselves. And I'm talking about managers and educators, et cetera, healthcare professionals, et cetera. So I love that we could help expand what people who are in that particular position, when they are coming to us, when they are coming to their healthcare professional or someone else that is helping guide them, coach them, etc. These are the things that I'm hoping people who are the audience right now, that they're gathering. This is what you should be getting out of your sessions. This is what you should be getting, whether you're paying somebody to help you or not. This is the interaction. We're not there to judge or accuse. We want you to live your best life. We want you to see through things that can maybe feel uncomfortable, but can help you clarify some things. We don't want to dismiss you, right? That's the whole kind of patient-centered approach that a lot of us are taking now too. And also, because from all of the things that you shared with us as well, like that self-disclosure coming out of it too. A lot of people are a little bit afraid to put their personal touch on relationships that they're building in a professional manner. I'm okay with destigmatizing a lot of the things that I feel could help people break down those barriers. So I don't mind sharing my own history with mental
I
health
shared
issues.
it.
It's exactly.
With what I know,
I was
you
gonna
know.
say, and you know what too, Matt? These days, everything's gonna be Googleable anyway, so you're gonna find out all the stuff I did in my past life. So why not just come clean? I wanted to ask you if we covered so much, I think, but is there anything as we are wrapping up that we did not touch upon that you might want to spread or sprinkle your words of wisdom if we didn't already cover it, if I didn't ask you?
No, I think you bring up a great point is that anybody you work with is a relationship, and you must feel safe to share what's underneath, because the only way to heal it is to share it, and to share it in a space where someone you trust can hold it, like you said, with love, right? Every client that comes to me, I believe, has a need that I attracted, and that they're a fit for me. Like the way I do therapy, and my collective approach is what someone needs. And I have a new client who, like, is not my typical client, but somewhat my typical client, and is got a lot of interesting energy. And I say, oh, great, this is an opportunity for me to grow, because I am a practitioner. So I kind of keep practicing. That's why I say I can't take you anywhere I haven't been, and nowhere that I'm not willing to go, that I have to meet you where you're at and hold you in dignity and respect. And just that alone is healing, because most people feel such shame about the things that they've done or the things that have happened to them, only because we haven't been shown that there is another way. And we haven't been given a space to say the things that we wanted to say that we were scared to say. So that's having that experience of courage. That's why I work very experientially. It's not just let's talk about your mother. It's how do you feel right now in this moment talking about your mother? Because that's where the healing happens, in the present moment. And the mind, I do a lot of imaginary work and experiential work, because the mind doesn't know the difference between what we imagine and what we experience. And through neuroplasticity, we can create. I tell this story: when I was in the third grade, nobody showed up to my birthday party. Nobody showed up. And I tell people, and they give that same respect. Oh, and I'm like, no, no, it's good, because I've gone back and done the work, and I realized what was happening in the moment. I've cared for that 8-year-old, And actually, in my imagination, I've had an even better birthday party. I have had elephants, and we went to Six Flags, and I had all my friends from today come to the birthday party. And so now every time I think about my third grade birthday party, it's this powerful experience of seeing my 8-year-old riding an elephant, not seeing that nobody showed up. And so that's how we begin to work. And I didn't know how to do that until I went to therapy, until I learned. And there's so much information on how the mind works and how our body works and how, the food we eat is so important and water and hydration, that it's all connected. It's not just like, I need to do that one thing. It's like, it's a whole experience of health and healing and wellness that we're always practicing. That's also why it's experiential, because what I need now in my 50s is different than what I needed in my 20s. I need more exercise and movement. I ain't going to the club and dancing like I used to, so I have to do the cardio.
Got to get the body moving in some
I got to
way.
get the booty. I ain't sweating on the dance floor like I used to. So, things change, our body shifts, and that's great. It's all good.
Yeah.
And if you really believe it's all good, then that's how we'll experience it.
Yeah, and this is why I think it speaks to sometimes when we encourage people, consistency is key because just like you said, it's not just the one day, the one week. And I will also encourage, challenge some of the people who are paying attention to
Invite.
this invite some of the people who are paying attention to this episode, take an inventory or an audit of where your time is being spent. Are you spending a lot of time complaining about something, scrolling incessantly on the internet? There you go, all the screens. I'm guilty too.
I'm
Not
guilty.
and right, Matt, like this is the thing. Not every minute of every waking hour has to be productive. That said, how many minutes are being spent unproductive or not filling your cup and replenishing yourself and telling yourself good things and manifesting those good positive energies? Because what a wonderful life that will be in
Yeah.
your current state, in your future state. What a wonderful opportunity for those around you. Also, as Matt said, of people who will be the average of the environment that they are
You are the
currently in.
average of your peers.
Mm-hmm.
So be mindful who you're hanging out with,
Mm-hmm.
because you also want to hang around people who will lift you up. So
Right.
that's why it's like I like to hang around people who I'm like, as I said, your identity, who
Yes.
inspire me and pull me higher, right? People who resonate with me at the same thinking, but also challenge me and grow me. Because if I'm hanging out with, you know, people of a lower vibration, then I will lower my vibration to meet theirs. It's just the law.
Right.
And so that's why it's also just a practice of being intentional and having some grace. I tell everybody, just be gentle with yourself. You're doing the best that you can. You're always doing the best that you can.
Right.
And so just be kind to yourself. The research shows that it takes 5 positive thoughts or 7 positive thoughts to override one negative thought. It does take a lot of assessment to look at where you are, but also look at where you desire to go and what's the gap. What are the non-productive actions that are, if I was living the life that I desire to live and doing all the things I wanted to be doing, and here I am now, what are the actions that I would be taking and what are the non-productive actions that I'm taking that are keeping me from this? That's what you get to look at. That's the constant self-reflection and self-assessment that we have to do in order to grow. It's like if you own a store, you have to take inventory. That I mean, when I got sober, that was the best thing I ever did with the fourth step inventory, because I had to take inventory of all those resentments, all those that I was still holding on to. I was still mad at my father for forgetting my 13th birthday 20 years later. What the heck? It didn't serve me. And how many people's birthday had I forgotten? So I was hypocritical. Okay, great. I get to take ownership and responsibility for the choices I was making to hold on to that and then release it and practice forgiveness and make amends. And that's how our evolution works. And we have to have processes to follow. Otherwise, if we don't have intentional practices, I mean, you're just going to keep repeating what you're doing and get the same results. So life is evolving, so therefore I too must evolve.
What a huge amount of takeaways from this
Oh,
conversation.
man.
I will end on my final two questions, which are my
Oh,
food pun intended. So, a little bit lighter discussion here of what is on your plate today, Matt, both when we are finished, figuratively, what is the next thing that you're going to be working on or pursuing? And then, what is the next meal that you're going to be treating yourself to?
after this, I have a client. Then this evening, I'm finishing the final edits of my book that I've been working on. It's my sort of self-help memoir. Or as I say, it's not a self-help book, it's a help yourself book because listen, you got to help yourself. And and then in the next week, my TED Talk, We Are All in Drag, Our Collective Identity Crisis, is scheduled to come out. So I'm working on that. I have a course that I'm about ready to launch, How to Be Your Own Therapist. And if you go to my website, amatterofpractice.com, I have a quiz that you can take to understand your personality archetype. I've created 6 archetypes. And then on my plate is I have a sweet green salad. I eat a sweet green salad every day, kale and arugula, make your own, with tomatoes, carrots, red onions, broccoli, cabbage, and chicken. And I have me some more kombucha.
You are currently doing your body and your gut very, very good. Well, Matt, this has been a true pleasure getting to
The treat.
know you and also for you to share your insights with our audience. I am so excited to see what the future of you becomes as well. So I'll definitely be tagging you all over the place and keeping up
Great.
with all of the things that you're pursuing. Thank you so much for spending time with me
You're so
today.
welcome. It's an honor. Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. Just take one thing that resonates with yourself and just be loving and kind to yourself because then that's how you'll see the rest of the world.